Nowadays, the media tells us to be vulnerable to literally everyone. You know, like they say men should not be tough anymore. They should literally just tell everyone their feelings and then be just giving out all your information and all your feelings all the time. And sometimes this could be very tricky because I don't think this should be the way people live. Because vulnerability to me is a really private thing. For me, it's way better to be vulnerable to like 1 to 2 people, literally on planet Earth, only 1 to 2 people. That's it. And then for everyone else, I don't want to show vulnerability. Why? It's very simple actually. If you think about it in prehistorical terms, when we are in our, back in the days, hunter-gatherer tribes, for example, we are super connected to our closest relatives, which are normally our mom, and not even our father, because we don't know who our father is back in the days. But anyways, the idea is we only close to like a certain few people, like our brother, for example, or our biological mother. So these are only just a bunch of people out of the entirety of the society that we actually be vulnerable to. And this is normal because they have our best interests. We share the same gene and they want to protect us if they are our immediately surrounded relatives. Now modern day is a little bit different, yes. So we have friends, we have sometimes co-workers. You know, like these people are working towards the same goal as us most of the time. And then we have spent so much time together, we share a lot of life experiences together. So in a way, we become a newer, like neo-family, for example, in our modern age. Now this is beautiful because sometimes we can share our vulnerability with these people. But with everyone else, like with someone you just met, or with someone you briefly only know a little bit, like someone like your colleague, someone like your schoolmates, why would you be vulnerable to them? Like if you're vulnerable to them, like you tell them like all your weaknesses and what you have done, like where you have sinned, or things like that, then would it be tricky because you don't know what their intentions are. They're strangers fundamentally. You just happen to be around them. And if you be vulnerable to them, they could just use this information against you later on when they're trying to manipulate you psychologically. Or they can use this information to tell someone else to weaken you, your social status, and in that way hurt your entire social standing. So that's actually a really dangerous thing to be doing. And I don't think a lot of people realize how dangerous that is, to be vulnerable to everyone, to be vulnerable, to live in that sense, to consider themselves a vulnerable person. Because fundamentally, I feel like we should be strong. All human beings should be strong first before they can be vulnerable. They have to be powerful, independent, before they can even think about being vulnerable to someone. Yes, sometimes we need to be vulnerable to like 1 to 2 people in our life, and we can choose those persons carefully. We can choose them based on how much we feel connected to them. We can choose them for how long they stick with us and how deep that connection is. So we can be vulnerable to people around us that we trust deeply. But to the everyday person, like you're just meeting someone randomly, you should never be vulnerable to them. You should always be strong. You should always be viewed as a powerful being. Because then they will firstly, they'll respect you. Secondly, you will become powerful in the sense that they will feel that you have respect for yourself. And then in that sense, you could become like a more desirable person and a highly effective person. So that's just a bit of a thought on vulnerability. I don't think everyone should be super vulnerable all the time, men or women. I don't think that makes perfect sense to me. And there's a lot of evidence that shows you should only be vulnerable to a few people. And for the rest of your life, for the majority of the people you meet, you should be strong. You should not express too much of your emotions to them, at least not negative emotions, please. Because sometimes, a lot of times, this turns people off. If you want to be socially desirable, I can tell you right now, if you just go up to someone and be incredibly negative and be incredibly vulnerable, especially as a man, like no one will respect you, and no one will be even compelled to be around you. That doesn't even make sense to me, fundamentally. Thank you so much. I think that's the spirit of the video. I just want you to think about this and make your own decision. Thanks so much. See you soon.